After 30 years, I finally exposed my stepsister who made my life miserable, and now my family knows the truth. I'm a 40-year-old man, in a relationship for over 20 years, with 2 wonderful daughters under 10. I've managed to build a relatively calm life as a lawyer, but it didn't come easily. For most of my life, I was trapped in a difficult situation caused by my stepsister, whom I now refer to as the troublemaker. To give you some background, my biological father passed away when I was very young, around 5 years old. My mom was left to raise me and my 2 brothers, one older, one younger, on her own. A few years later, she remarried a widower who had a daughter my age. I was around 6 to 8 years old at the time. From the moment our families merged, my stepsister decided that my brothers and I had ruined her life by invading her world. She was determined to make our lives difficult, and her goal was clear: to separate her father from my mother so they could live together, just the 2 of them. She took it upon herself to constantly harass me. On the surface, you would never know it. In public, she played the role of a sweet, innocent girl. But behind closed doors, she was completely different. She fed her father and my mom lies about me and my brothers, painting us as the problem. Over time, they believed her stories. Meanwhile, I was left wondering why I had become the family outcast. Growing up, I was treated like the black sheep, the one who was always blamed. I never really understood why. I was the only one in the family who didn't receive an allowance, the only one not allowed to drive, the only one not sent abroad to study for a year like my brothers, and the only one whose friends weren't allowed to visit. I wasn't even allowed to have a cell phone when my peers all had them in the 90s. I had to sneak out to spend time with friends because asking for permission always resulted in a no. Worse, I wasn't allowed to get a job growing up because they thought it was dangerous for me to have money. When I finally got selected by a prestigious lawyer to work and learn from him during my 2nd semester at university, I was thrilled. However, the pay was minimal, so I had no money. When I got a girlfriend, I couldn't afford to take her out, and my parents refused to help. Even borrowing the car to visit her was a struggle. Eventually, I had to leave that job for one that paid better out of necessity. I still remember the disappointment in my first boss's eyes when I left, but he knew about my situation, and there was nothing he could do to help. In the end, I was the only one who was kicked out of the house. For years, I tried to understand why my family treated me this way. I made countless attempts to expose my stepsister's lies, but no one ever believed me. It was as if they were under her spell. My family was obsessed with maintaining appearances. Everything had to look perfect on the outside, and any problems were swept under the rug. One of those hidden secrets was that my stepsister had been diagnosed with certain mental health issues and had even spent time in an institution, but no one ever talked about it. If they didn't acknowledge it, it didn't exist, right? Fast forward 30 years, and I've distanced myself from my family for my own peace of mind. I'm living a peaceful life with my wife and daughters. Meanwhile, my stepsister is still single at 40, living with, and fully supporting, a broke 60-year-old divorced man with a 6-year-old daughter. It's baffling, but so typical of her. 2 years ago, my mom and stepfather asked me for legal advice about their will and estate planning. The relationship between us was cordial at best, but I agreed to help. Then, as usual, my stepsister found out. She completely lost it, accusing my mom of trying to take her inheritance. She claimed that because she was the only real daughter, she should be the sole heir. To her, my brothers and I were thieves. She swore she would destroy us all. Then things got worse. She started spreading horrible rumors within the extended family. She accused my older brother of harming her when we were younger and claimed I had done inappropriate things with 2 of our cousins. She even hinted that my own daughters were unsafe around me. Naturally, this caused a huge stir, and my step-uncle, the father of one of the cousins I supposedly hurt, was furious with me. I'm pretty sure the only thing that stopped him from confronting me was the fact that we live in different countries. At this point, I knew things were about to spiral out of control. Some of my darkest secrets were at risk of being exposed, so I decided to get ahead of it. I took my wife and drove to my parents' house. I sat them down and told them everything, every embarrassing detail. I told them about my attraction to trans women, my secret kisses with one of the cousins I supposedly hurt. We were teenagers and weren't even related by blood. We were introduced and told we were cousins, and I explained that nothing inappropriate ever happened. I also confessed about my occasional smoking habits. Knowing full well how deeply religious my parents are, we're talking about a very strict belief system here, so even the mention of smoking was shocking. I laid everything on the table so that my stepsister would have no more ammunition to use against me. This was extremely difficult, and I ended up in the hospital a few days later with pancreatitis due to the stress it caused me. To my surprise, they believed me. The troublemaker had tormented them for so long that they finally started to see the truth. They realized that maybe I wasn't the problem after all. It only took them 30 years, right? They asked me what they should do. By this point, I had dealt with my fair share of manipulative people, so I told them that if they wanted the truth to come out, they had to stop engaging with her. I explained that they needed to let her feel like her attacks weren't working. We agreed that I would tell my brothers and half-brothers about the situation, and they too would stop engaging with her. The more we ignored her, the more desperate she would become, and eventually, she would make a mistake. For 2 years, we didn't engage. We stayed silent. My stepsister was left ranting and raving to herself. No one responded, and no one gave her any attention. I knew it was eating her up inside. Then 2 weeks ago, one of my stepbrothers got married, and we all attended the wedding. We hadn't seen each other in a while, and my stepsister assumed my wife and my brother's wife were still unaware of everything. She thought my brothers were clueless too. She couldn't have been more wrong. At the wedding, no one greeted her. No one acknowledged her broke partner either. Tons of pictures were taken, but in most of them, she and her boyfriend were conveniently cut out. The next day, she finally snapped and made her first mistake. She texted my wife, accusing me of being a terrible person and a danger to our daughters. She told my wife that we would never speak again and offered to tell her the truth about me when she was ready. She thought she was dropping a bomb on my marriage, but my wife already knew everything. I knew exactly what to do next. I took a screenshot of that text and sent it to our extended family group chat, the one with all the cousins, uncles, and everyone else. I finally exposed her after 30+ years, publicly asking her to tell everyone the truth she had been threatening to reveal. She made her second mistake. She replied in the group chat, downplaying everything and gaslighting me. She claimed I was overreacting and said I was making a big scene, as I always had. She said I was being unreasonable and needed to stop making a spectacle of everything. Her third mistake came shortly after. She texted my wife again, asking her to delete my crazy messages and saying that she only wanted to clear things up without drama. Of course, I took a screenshot of that text too and sent it to the group chat. I told her we would never have a private conversation again and invited her to share her truth with the whole family. That's when she realized she had been exposed in front of the entire extended family, not just the immediate family she had manipulated for years. It's been 2 weeks, and the group chat has been silent. My mom called me afterward and said, "I think I'm realizing I may have been wrong about you for almost your entire life, but you forgive me, right?" I don't even know how to respond to that. After 30 years of being the scapegoat and the black sheep, I finally exposed the person who tormented me. It almost cost me everything, but it was worth it. For the first time in my life, I feel safe. I never realized how much I didn't know what feeling safe truly meant. I'm unsure how to move forward with my family, and I don't know if I even want a deeper relationship with them at this point.